Yes. So the important point that is being discussed here in this verse is that the perfection of life, and it is being said here that it is concluded that the perfection of life, of performing all the duties, is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada here is clearly describing Varnashrama system, the 4 Varnas and Ashramas, and what the aim of all of these must be. So the goal of Varnashrama system, Prabhupada is mentioning here, is to please the Supreme Authority of the Personality of Godhead. So otherwise, Prabhupada is saying there is no meaning to this entire concept of Varnashrama if it is not pleasing the Supreme, if it is not performing the activity of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada is also mentioning here that it is not, the Varnashrama system is not meant for artificial dominance of one class of people or another. And that aspect of domination of one class over another is happening because of sense gratification. So, and Prabhupada is further mentioning that the entire system of Varnashrama system is for the smooth intercourse of the social orders. So there are, as a society, there needs a smooth functioning, just like as we see in traffic, when in the roads, there are certain divisions made, one side of the road, you can go at a certain speed, another side, you can go at a certain speed, and in the middle, you can go at a certain speed, recommendedly, so that there is a smooth intercourse. The people who want to travel fast, they can go in one way, others can go in another way. Similarly, this Varnashrama system, which is created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is meant for the smooth social intercourse. And the goal is that in this smooth way, they can reach to the destination, and the destination is self-realization and to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there is no other purpose. So the destination is very clear, and actually according to Varnashrama Dharma, and also the process or the system of Varnashrama system is meant to facilitate that purpose, that destination that is to be reached. Towards the end, Prabhupada is saying is that the highest aim of life, or the highest perfection of the institution of Varnashrama Dharma, is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is another interesting point Prabhupada is bringing, is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So this is again important that it is in the social intercourse, there are different duties performed by different individuals based upon one's guna and karma. So it is important that one does not artificially dominate over another because of some temporary position or because of some temporary ability, but rather work cooperatively to satisfy the Supreme Lord. And this is being said to be the highest perfection or the aim of life. Now, in order to understand this further, let us take few more examples and few more purports where Prabhupada is explaining this important aspect of satisfying or pleasing the Supreme Lord. So each different religion has different idea of God, and each different religion has slightly different variation of paths as how to reach. And similarly, each religion also carries a different conception of what is the perfection of life. So as we see in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the perfection of life is being said to be Krishna Prema. And here in this verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 4.165, in this verse, Krishnanath Kaviraj Goswami is actually trying to explain what is the difference between lust and love. And it is important that Krishnanath Kaviraj Goswami is mentioning this verse with respect to the reasons why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears. So he gives 3 reasons, and in the third reason, before explaining the third reason, he's explaining this difference between love and lust. And further, he explains what is the lust and love of gopis. So, but for us, it is very important to note this point. Here it's being said, Atmendriya Priti Vancha Tare Bali Kama, Krishnendriya Priti Ichha Dhare Prema Nama. So, Atmendriya Priti, for the pleasure of one's own senses, Vancha, desires. So, when one desires to please one's own senses, Tare Bali Kama, that Krishnanath Kaviraj Goswami is saying that is to be lust, kama. Krishnendriya Priti Ichha Dhare Prema Nama. So when the same Ichha, the desired, So one living entity cannot be free from desire. His desire is concomitant factor. It's always present with the living entity. Now, when that desire, instead of to please one's own atmendriya priti, but rather if the living entity is engaging that to please Krishna, the senses of Krishna, then that is known as prema. So in other words, in the translation, Prabhupada writes, the desire to gratify one's own senses is kama, lust, but the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema. So it's very important to note, the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema. Now, this is very important. Again, we can see here, Prabhupada is writing here, please. The word pleasing the Supreme Lord, or pleasing the senses of the Supreme Lord is so fundamental to the entire Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. And Prabhupada mentions that the impersonalists, they do not have the conception of who the Supreme Lord is. And especially in the sense that they do not have the conception of the personality of the God. Because they do not consider the Lord to be a person, therefore they consider the Lord does not have any senses. And therefore they do not engage in any kinds of activities which actually pleases the senses of the Lord. Whereas on the other hand, devotees recognize that the Supreme Lord is individual, is person, and he has personal taste and likes and dislikes. And therefore, devotees become very conscious and they engage in those activities which actually satisfy the senses of the Supreme Lord. And therefore, there are so many do's and don'ts because the Lord as an individual, he has certain likes and dislikes. And that we can only understand through the mercy of a pure devotee. So here it is also important that Prabhupada defines that lust refers to fruitive activity or activity for sense gratification. As we see, different people are engaged in different activities. Someone is studying, someone is working, someone is doing some business. All those things, at the bottom underlying factor is, what is the gain for me? How can I make more money? How can I establish myself more happily? And in different conceptions of life, the idea is, how do I satisfy myself, or how do I satisfy my external family, my society, my community? And in different ways, there are different ideas of satisfying one's own senses. And therefore, in the purport, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions that acts of sense gratification may be performed under the covers of public welfare, nationalism, religion, altruism, ethical codes, biblical codes, health directives, fruitive action, bashfulness, tolerance, personal comfort, liberation from material bondage, progress, family affection, or fear of social ostracism or legal punishment. But all these categories are different subdivisions of one substance, sense gratification. So Prabhupada very elaborately describing how this one category called sense gratification can take different forms. It can take the cover of public welfare. People may say, oh, I'm doing this for the public welfare. But at the end, it is my interest. If my interest is gone, then I will not be doing the public welfare. Similarly, religion also can be in the name of sense gratification. And there are different reasons people engage in this act of, in different forms people engage this sense gratification. But here it is being said, all such good acts are performed basically for one's own sense gratification, for no one can sacrifice his personal interest while discharging this much advertised moral and religious principles. So it is very important to note, whose interest am I serving? In the process of doing religion or some sort of welfare, sometimes of nationalism, or different activities that one is performing, whose interest am I really concerned about? Is it my fame, name, my position in society? Or is it something else? And then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, but above all this is a transcendental stage in which one feels himself to be only an eternal servitor of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead. All acts performed in this sense of servitude are called pure love of God because they are performed for the absolute sense gratification of Sri Krishna. So this understanding, these activities when performed in the transcendental stage of understanding, realizing one's own position as an eternal servitor of Krishna, and performing in the attitude of servitude are called pure love of God. Because in the attitude of the servitor, the idea is only to please the master. The real servant enacts any activity only to please and satisfy the master. And in this case, the master is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. And therefore, here it has been said that in the real sense of servitude, the activities, when performed for the absolute sense gratification of Shri Krishna, it is called pure love of God. So, this activity is this aspect of So this activity, this aspect of pleasing the Lord is very, very central to bhakti. And this is something which is very important. One may attempt to do so many different things, but at the core of all of them is the idea is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is the idea to please the spiritual master. If that is missing, then everything else takes the form of different kinds of sense gratification, extended or concentrated. So that is the important point that we are trying to understand today, that how are we doing different activities? Are we putting Krishna in the center of all activities, or are there different reasons why different activities are being performed? So with that, there are various instructions and letters and Srila Prabhupada has given, where Prabhupada is explaining how do we understand Krishna's desire. So Srila Prabhupada says that tasmin tushte jagat tushtam. Prabhupada says that if Krishna is satisfied, then everything is all right. In fact, once devotees were planning to go out in kirtan, and they were very disappointed that there were not many people who were present, who were not coming to listen kirtan. And Prabhupada says that you simply perform this kirtana for the satisfaction of Krishna. That should be the only goal. And if Krishna is pleased, Krishna will send devotees. He will send interested souls. So this idea of tasmin tushte jagat tushtam, if Krishna is satisfied, then everything is all right. This is very, very fundamental. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, when he was having a conversation in a room, he was telling that people do not want me to be in the West because the Christians think I'm converting the people in the West. And the people do not want me to be in Vrindavan or in India because some caste Brahmins, they think I am polluting the system. So Prabhupada laughs and he says, see, neither they are satisfied, neither these people are satisfied. Wherever I'm going, no one is satisfied. I mean, there are people who are opposing me. But Prabhupada says that I am doing, at this age of 70, still I'm traveling away from Vrindavana and coming out because I'm trying to satisfy my spiritual master and the Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada is personally demonstrating that the fundamental driving factor for all the activities is only to please Supreme Personality of Godhead and the spiritual master. And Prabhupada is saying that at this point of time in this lecture, Prabhupada is saying further that we are not directly in contact with Krishna. So we should not manufacture that this is Krishna's desire. But rather, Prabhupada is saying that we should try to see Krishna's desire through the transparent via medium of spiritual master and follow the principles given by the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Through that process, when we follow, we can understand what is actually Krishna's desire. And this is also very important. We'll see as how in Gaudiya Vaishnava system, how does one try to please Krishna? So now just to add one more point to this, that if one has to please. So if one may question, if I have to only please Krishna's senses, what about my senses? How will I live my life? How will I take care of my family? There are so many considerations one may ask. And therefore, this beautiful verse which says, Kamasya nendriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasa nato yash jeha karma bihi. Here it is being said that life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. Only one should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So here it is being said that only what is required for healthy life or self-preservation. The Prabhupada, in other words, mentions in different places that whatever is required to keep the body and the soul together in a healthy condition, that much one should desire for material comforts. Because otherwise, the material comforts, there are no end to it. There is no end to satisfying one's own desires, especially the material desires. They never stop, they never end, one after other. So the only way is to turn our desires completely to serve the Lord, to please the Lord. If that is not happening, then we are not actually going towards the real goal of life, the real perfection of life. So with that being said, we'll look at two examples. The one example of Sakshi Gopal. If some of you would have attended last year's journey for Janmashtami, I think it was on the second day, we were discussing this wonderful pastime of Sakshi Gopal. Just to briefly mention about the pastime, there were two Brahmanas, in fact Vaishnavas, one and younger one and older one from the town of Vidyanagara, who happened to travel to various pilgrimage places, Prayag, Varanasi, and then they happened to go to Vrindavana to see the different temples and visit different temples. Eventually, they go to the place where currently there is Govindadev temple. Earlier, there was a temple of Gopala. So when they went there and they worshipped, when they saw the Lord, they became very, very satisfied, very pleased. And they became so much pleased that they decided to spend few more days to just take the glimpse of the wonderful deity of Gopala and offer prayers. And as we saw last year, that this pastime was narrated to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by Lord Nityananda Prabhu. And this is such a wonderful pastime, as Prabhu was mentioning last time, that how nectarian would have it would have been by hearing from the mouth of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is hearing this. So in this pastime, when these two Brahmanas visit two Vaishnavas to visit this temple of Sakshi Gopal, and the older Brahmana, Vaishnava, he becomes so much filled with gratitude towards this younger Vaishnava, because he helped him travel this entire pilgrimage trip. And he made such wonderful arrangements, and he was of such great help that the older Brahmana, he never felt any fatigue in the process of traveling all these places. And being so pleased by his service, he said that I promise to you that I will offer my daughter in marriage to you. But the younger Brahmana soon realized that how can this be possible? And he immediately says, the older Brahmana, don't give such a promise, because you come from an aristocratic family, you come from an educational background. I don't have those qualifications. Not only you have to consult your wife, your son, your other relatives before you can make this decision, and they will not agree to you. So please don't commit to this kind of promise. But then the older Brahmana says, no, my daughter is my property. So I can give her to whomever I like. And he says, I promise in front of the Lord Gopala that I will give my daughter to you. And then the younger Brahmana also goes to the Lord and he says, you are the witness, O Lord. If he does not do, I will call you as a witness. And so the younger Brahmana says this, and they go back to the town of Vidyanagara, and then the other aspects of discussion takes place, and how the Lord eventually comes to bear as a witness for the entire episode, which happens later on. But before going that, there are a couple of verses that come in the process which describe about how does one please the Supreme Lord. So here, these two verses, so one verse which says about a verse prior to the verse that we are going to focus on, it's being said here, Sir, I am not a suitable bridegroom for your daughter. I render service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna. So, Krishna pritiye kari tomara seva vyavhara. So, the older Brahmana wanted to give in return to the service rendered by the younger Brahmana that I will give you my daughter. But here the younger Brahmana is bringing a very important aspect. He's saying, I am not suitable bridegroom for your daughter. And most importantly, he's saying, I render service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna. This is another very important point. To serve Vaishnavas is such an important principle, and not to serve with any expectation, not to get some name, not to get acknowledged by others. Oh, I'm doing so much. No, only for the satisfaction of Krishna. And in this purport, there's Prabhupada beautifully writes that both Brahmanas were pure Vaishnavas. The younger man took special care of the older one simply to please Krishna. In Śrīmad Bhagavatam, Krishna says, Mat Bhakta Puja Abhyadika. It is better to render service to my devotee. Thus, according to the Gaudiya philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is better to be a servant of the servant of God. One should not and identifies himself as a servant of Krishna. This is pleasing to Lord Krishna. So here, another very important aspect about how to please Krishna is being very clearly mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. So here it is being said that the Supreme Lord considers that it is better to render service to my devotee. So here, and further, Prabhupada is quoting this statement by saying that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says the same thing. It is better to be servant of the servant of the servant of God. And one should not try to serve Krishna directly. So this is the another very important fundamental principle in Gaudiya Vaishnava understanding, that one has to serve the devotees. One has to serve a pure Vaishnava. Only then one can serve the Supreme Lord. It is not that directly one can serve the Supreme Lord. The method is to serve another servant. And it is said that this is much more pleasing to the Lord. And Narottama Das Thakur says that Chariya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Paiche Keva. So one cannot attain liberation without serving a liberated Vaishnava. And it is being said, one cannot attain liberation by directly serving Krishna. He must serve the servant of Krishna. So this is another very important principle, that as we see, Samsiddhir Haritoshanam, to please the Supreme Lord, and as also Prabhupada says, that we cannot directly understand what Krishna wants. But when we act to please our authorities, when we act to please Srila Prabhupada, then Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasado. So simply by satisfying a pure devotee, by the pure representative of the Supreme Lord and serving the authorities, then one can know when they are pleased, Krishna is also pleased. So this instruction is very important for all of us as we remember that we try to please Krishna. It is further said in the next verse, Brahmana sevaya Krishnera priti badahaya tanahara santoshe bhakti sampad badaya. So here in this verse it is said, Lord Krishna is very pleased by service rendered to a Brahmanas. And when the Lord is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases. So here is another very important principle that is being mentioned, that the Lord is much more pleased when one renders service to Brahmanas, or in fact Vaishnavas. And it is being said, what happens when the Lord is pleased? The opulence of one's devotional service increases. So the test of how one is increasing one's devotional service is when one pleases the Supreme Lord. That's when one's devotional service increases. But when the Lord is pleased when the service is rendered to the Brahmanas, the Vaishnavas, the devotees. And in this purport, it is beautifully written that in this regard, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura comments that the younger Brahmana rendered service to the older one with the purpose of pleasing Krishna. It was not a matter of ordinary worldly dealings. Krishna is pleased when a Vaishnava is rendered service. Because the younger Brahmana served the older one, Lord Gopala agreed to become a witness of the marriage negotiation in order to maintain the prestige of both devotees. So this is so important. It is not another worldly dealings when we deal with Vaishnavas, when we deal with devotees. We must know that when the service rendered to the devotees is done not as matter of worldly dealings, but to please Krishna, then Krishna is very pleased. And here it is seen in this pastime that the Lord Gopala himself agrees to become a witness to this entire episode just because of the wonderful service rendered by the younger Brahmana, the Vaishnava. So this is another very important principle as we need to keep in mind when we are trying to please the Supreme Lord. Moving further, Prabhupada also mentions a few more places about the importance of serving or pleasing a pure devotee of the Lord. Prabhupada writes in the purport of 2.3.23, the first condition of devotional service to the Lord is therefore to be a servant of a pure devotee. And this condition is fulfilled by the statement, reception of the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee who has also served another pure devotee, that is the way of pure disciplic succession or devotional parampara. So Prabhupada is mentioning the first condition of devotional service to the Lord is to serve a pure devotee. So this is so important. We should all always remember that this parampara, that is the way of pure disciplic succession or devotional parampara. So Prabhupada is establishing that without taking the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee who has served another pure devotee. So we always need to follow the system that is given by Srila Prabhupada to make further advancement to actually please the Supreme Lord. Further, Prabhupada is also saying that one should understand Krishna in truth, and this can do only by serving a pure devotee. Thus, Prahlad Maharaj prays that Lord Narasimhadev place him in touch with a pure devotee and servant instead of awarding him material opulence. Every intelligent man within this material world must follow Prahlad Maharaj. So here again we see that we are all trying to janma karma chamay divyam evam yo veti tatvataha. We are all trying to understand Krishna in truth. But we cannot understand Krishna in truth without rendering service to a pure devotee. And therefore Prahlad Maharaj is praying that please put me in touch with a pure devotee. Please put me in service of a pure devotee. And I do not want any other material opulence. So this is so important that we need to follow these prayers offered by Mahajanas as Janmashtami is coming. We must know, how can I understand Krishna? I can understand Krishna in association with devotees, Chariya Vaishnava Seva. Without that, it's not possible. By pleasing a pure devotee, by becoming a servant. So these are some very important principles one must keep in mind as we go forward in our devotional service. Further, I'll briefly touch upon another pastime, which is also very wonderful to note, which is very important in describing the act of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this pastime comes in the Krishna book, chapter 23, where the wives of Brahmanas, they pleased Krishna by offering him varieties of foodstuffs. So in this pastime, it is very important to recognize that so one morning when Lord Krishna and Balarama, they were traveling with other cowherd boys along the Yamuna river, the other cowherd boys, they became very hungry. And then they immediately go to Krishna and Balarama and they say, oh, you're all powerful, you're all, you can kill so many demons. Now we are afflicted with hunger. Can you please help us remove this, the trouble that we are facing because of hunger? Then the Supreme Lord Krishna, he immediately takes compassion upon the wives of the Brahmanas who are performing sacrifices. So on certain wives of the Brahmanas, Lord Krishna becomes immediately compassionate. And he says to these cowherd boys that all of you go to the Brahmanas and go and ask them for some food. But in fact, he says that go and ask for some charity. And furthermore, Lord Krishna says there that you do not mention my name, because these Brahmanas, they do not chant my name. They do not understand me. And therefore, you refer to the name of Balarama, and in the name of Balarama, you ask them for some charity. And Prabhupada mentions that because Lord Krishna was identified as son of Nanda Maharaj in the Vaishya community, whereas Balarama was identified as son of Rohini, and therefore of Kshatriya. Maybe the Brahmanas who consider that, we can give some charity to Kshatriya, but not to Vaishya. So Lord Krishna instructs them that, okay, in this way you go and ask them, maybe they will go and they will give something. So all these cowherd boys, they go there and they very beautifully ask. I'll just read out how wonderfully they ask this. One moment. So they go to this Brahmanas, who are actually not Vaishnavas, and the cowherd boys, they go there and they start asking. So they say, O earthly gods, kindly hear us, who are ordered by Lord Krishna and Balarama. We hope you know them both very well, and we wish you all good fortune. Krishna and Balarama are tending cows nearby, and we have accompanied them. We have come to ask for some food from you. You are all Brahmanas and knowers of religious principles. And if you think that you should give us charity, then give us some food, and we shall all eat along with Krishna and Balarama. You are the most respectable Brahmanas within the human society, and you are expected to know all the principles of religious procedure. So very wonderfully, by addressing them as, O earthly gods, we are ordered by Lord Krishna and Balarama, and please give us some food. So Prabhupada mentions that although these boys were from village, they were all village boys and not very much expected to learn the Vedic wisdoms or principles of religious life. Because of their association with Krishna and Balarama, they knew all the principles, and they could also talk about different instructions from the Vedic tradition, and they could tell the Brahmanas as what they should do and why they should do. So further, they also say that, in fact, Prabhupada mentions that the boys, if Krishna would have asked the boys to give some foodstuff, they would give it without hesitation. And thus, they understand the principle that one should perform yajna only for the satisfaction of Vishnu. So if there is anything which is to be given for the satisfaction of Vishnu, the boys would never hesitate. And therefore, they understand the principles of Vedic wisdom. Whereas these Brahmanas, who are so learned scripturally, who are performing various sacrifices, and their purpose of performing sacrifices is go to the heavenly planets. So Prabhupada mentions that simply by associating with the Supreme Lord, one becomes more knowledgeable than the Brahmana. So further, it is being said that the boys further explain and ask the Brahmanas to offer something. But in spite of all this, because the Brahmanas do not understand Krishna, and therefore their understanding is not complete, they do not try to pay any attention to these boys. In fact, they do not even speak anything to these boys. They don't respond back to their question, their request. So in this regard, Prabhupada mentions that there are various details to be observed in the performance of sacrifices, and they are known as collectively as desha. They are as follows: kala means the time, prithak dravya, the different detailed paraphernalia, mantra, hymns, tantra, scriptural evidences, agni, fire, ritvij, learned performance of sacrifices, devata, the demigods, vajamana, the performer of the sacrifice, kratu, the sacrifice itself, and dharma, the procedures. All these are for satisfying Krishna. So here again, Prabhupada is bringing in the point that the Brahmanas are trying to do something, but they do not understand what is the reason behind doing all these things. Prabhupada is saying that Krishna is actually the enjoyer of all sacrifices, and the prime duty is to please him, is to satisfy him. And the Supreme Lord has instructed his cowherd boys to get some food stuff by which he would be satisfied actually directly. And therefore, if the Brahmanas would have been actually well acquainted with the Vedic knowledge and well realized in this knowledge, they should have immediately done this. But because they are not fully acquainted in the knowledge of the Vedic wisdom, they do not do this. And they come back to Lord Krishna very disappointed. They say that what all has happened. And after hearing this, Lord Krishna wonderfully smiles. And he says not to be sorry, because Krishna says that that is the way of begging. So Krishna says that while one is engaged in collecting or begging, one should not think that he will be successful everywhere. He may be unsuccessful in some places, but that should not be the cause for disappointment. Lord Krishna then asked all the boys to go to the wives of those Brahmanas engaged in sacrifices. So this is another important instruction, that when we go to please Lord Krishna, sometimes when we may end up with some dissatisfaction or lack of success, but that should not be the cause for disappointment. Rather, Lord Krishna, as in this case, is directing the boys to go to another place, to the wives of Brahmanas, and ask for the same thing that they asked from the Brahmanas. So it is very important that in this attempt to please the Lord, we should never be disappointed or dejected. So the cowherd boys, very enthusiastically following the orders of Krishna, immediately went to the wives of Brahmanas, and they saw the wives of Brahmana were beautifully ornamented, and the boys offered their respects to this wives of Brahmanas, and they said, "Dear mothers, please accept our humble obeisances and hear our statement. May we inform you that Lord Krishna and Balarama are nearby. They have come here with the cows, and you may know also that we have come here under their instructions. All of us are very hungry, therefore we have come to you for some food. Please give us something to eat for Krishna and Balarama ourselves." So very similar prayer they offer to the wives of a request to the wives of Brahmana. And when the wives of Brahmana heard this, they immediately became very, very anxious. The reactions were very spontaneous. They didn't want any external reason. They were so spontaneously filled with anxiety to serve Krishna and satisfy Krishna, because Krishna is asking for something. So immediately they filled various pots with various wonderful foodstuff. And Prabhupada mentions, because these wives of Brahmanas, they were always thinking of Krishna, and they were always performing sacrifices, the food that was prepared was very, very palatable. So after collecting all these feasts that they put in the pots, they went to Lord Krishna, and they immediately go and look at Krishna, who is beautifully decorated with golden garment, a beautiful garland, a peacock feather, different minerals. He was painted with different minerals found in Vrindavana. He looked exactly like a dancing actor on a theatrical stage. And they were so mesmerized seeing the Supreme Lord. And now the Lord also reciprocates their service. And it is here Prabhupada writes that actually these wives of Brahmanas, although they were not educated or in the Vedas as the Brahmanas, but they have understood this most fundamental principle. That is, they were actually following Krishna's instruction in Bhagavad Gita. One should surrender to him, giving up all varieties of occupational and religious duties. So the wives of the Brahmanas, even though they were being obstructed by their husbands, by their relatives, by their children, but they did not care for anything, but they just came out to serve the Supreme Lord in spite of all the resistances that they encountered. And when Lord Krishna, who is present as Super Soul in everyone's heart, recognized the intensity with which they came, he immediately addressed, "My dear wives of the Brahmanas, you are all very fortunate and welcomed here. Please let me know, what can I do for you? You are coming here, neglecting all the restrictions and hindrances of relatives, fathers, brothers, and husbands in order to see me is completely befitting. One who does this actually knows his self-interest, because rendering transcendental loving service unto me without motive or restrictions actually auspicious for the living entities." So this is very, very interesting that the Lord himself is saying, what can I do for you? You are coming here, neglecting all the restrictions and hindrances of relatives, fathers, brothers, is completely befitting. So this is very important for all of us to recognize that when we serve the Lord is not blind to all this. He's much more compassionate. He's much more eager to bring us back, take us back to the spiritual world, and he's willing to do more. As we see in the case of Arjuna, when although Arjuna didn't want to fight, but when he fought the battle, immediately he was taken care by the Supreme Lord. He was instructed, all opulences, all strength, all victory comes. So it is important here that the importance instruction is that surrender to the Lord, to have faith in the Lord, that the Lord will do much more than what little we can do, and he will give us all sorts of protection. And when the wives of Brahmanas, when they fear that how can we go back to our homes, because our husbands, they will not accept us, but the Lord assures them that there will be no issue. So we also have various conceptions when we want to go and serve the Lord or please the Lord. We also think from different perspectives of societal concerns, from different aspects of what personally I lose. But we must all be assured, just as in the case of the wives of Brahmanas, who were personally asked by the Lord as what can I do? And Lord is actually providing them with all the necessity requirements and all auspiciousness that is required. And there is no loss in their part. And in fact, there was no trouble when they went back to their homes. So as I see the time is up. So just to summarize, it is very important that we all pay attention to satisfy the Supreme Lord. We understand that we must understand that serving devotees, pure devotee, is very pleasing to the Supreme Lord. So we should approach the Supreme Lord through devotees, through the system that Prabhupada has established, and serve Prabhupada sincerely, and that will be pleasing the Supreme Lord. And we should also see from the example of the wives of Brahmanas that the eagerness that they carried to serve the Lord, and how the Lord is always reciprocating with his devotees. The Lord is much more reciprocating than what one can do. And therefore, we should have this firm faith and perform activities to please the Lord. And by that, one can attain perfection of life. Samsiddhir haritoshanam. With this, I will stop here. And we'll move to if there are any quick question or comment. Hare Krishna, Shri Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
You want to share anything?
Just the summary, Prabhu, like good point. The activities that we perform, no matter what they are, they can deal with multiple aspects of life in what we are doing. But the goal, the end goal should be pleasing Krishna.
Thank you. Giri Garu, you want to share anything?
No, Prabhu.
Okay. Yes.
Basically, it should be understood that the wives of the Brahmanas, they were executing the varnashrama the proper way, haritoshanam, whereas the husbands were not doing that correctly, correct? That was the example. Or is it not an example of varnashrama at all?
No,
The
no.
transcendental loving devotion service
Yes.
is outside of varnashrama.
Yeah.
So that is what I was wondering, that in varnashrama, because varnashrama is always, in my mind at least, associated with the karma kanda section of the Vedic system. Is it even possible to render, to please Krishna through varnashrama? Or when we want to please Krishna, it's always outside varnashrama as a pure devotional activity or transcendental activity, which is outside varnashrama? How is it?
To my understanding, it is that Prabhupada says that does not matter which occupation you are. If the goal is to satisfy Krishna, for example, Prabhupada gives always in different places, Prabhupada gives example that one is earning money. Now, is the goal is to satisfy one's own senses, Atmandira Priti, or is it meant to serve Krishna? So when that occupation which is done, if it is engaged in the service of Krishna, then that is no more material activity. So the idea is, what is the consciousness of while doing that activity? So while doing one's occupational activities, if one is aiming to only please Krishna with whatever activities, then there is success. Otherwise, there is no success. So as we also see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, doesn't matter which occupational duty you are in. If you simply hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a pure devotee of the Lord and perform your activities, then you attain the perfection that is required. So always another word that is also often used, Devi Varnashrama Dharma. So without having this word, the Lord in the center, there is no meaning to the Varnashrama Dharma. So having the Lord in the center is very, very crucial to Varnashrama Dharma. So only then it becomes actual Varnashrama Dharma as understood in the Vedic system.
In that sense, that Varnashrama, when you're executing with the Lord in the center, is there more probable tendency that you're putting the Lord in the center for material benefit? So it's also possible to put the Lord in the center for material benefit.
But as this verse is mentioning, Prabhupada is again and again saying that the aim is to only satisfy through Varnashrama. So even when Prabhupada was talking about, in fact, Prabhupada gets a lot of land in Hyderabad, and Prabhupada says here starts a new beginning, or some sort of a phrase. Prabhupada is stating that we should engage all kinds of interests and inclinations of people, self-sufficiency to satisfy the Lord. So I think in the conception of Varnashrama that Prabhupada talks about, there is no exclusion of material gain. There's only all material proclivities served only for the spiritual gain.
For the purpose of pleasing the Lord.
Yes. Okay. If there are no questions, thank you all for joining. Hope everyone will have a wonderful Janmashtami. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, good. So today is the final day of our journey to Janmashtami. Tomorrow is Janmashtami, and we probably couldn't have a more befitting class than this, which talks about the importance of pleasing the Lord. ātatam vibhagasa svanushthitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. The purpose of life, the activities that are performed, whatever we are doing in our life, the goal of all of those should all be aimed to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Samsiddhir haritoshanam. This is the perfection of life. And just one day is remaining, and tomorrow is Janmashtami. So the activity that we have today is basically geared at, can we do something which is going to please the Lord? Of course, we have been doing all these activities this entire month, almost 29 days, 28 days for pleasing the Lord. But tomorrow is a very special one, because this is something which the Lord likes himself. And what that activity is and how that activity can please the Lord, to explain that, I would like to call upon Jagannath Tirtha Prabhu, who himself is a good cook, and he will explain us what is the activity. Can I request all of you to have a loud Haribol for Jagannath? Haribol. Over to you, Jagannath Tirtha Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving me the opportunity to speak something about the Lord. So let me share my screen. So my representation is dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And actually my topic is today prepare a dish with butter. And this is completely dedicated to our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. So, actually, Srila Prabhupada was famous for the excellent cooking. So he was so much famous that this news has been published in the Times paper in the Los Angeles. So Srila Prabhupada was cooking prasadam, offering to the Lord and distributing among the devotees. And in this way, Srila Prabhupada has distributed this Krishna consciousness to the whole world. So Srila Prabhupada has actually written the book in which there are a lot many dishes which we can prepare for the Lord to satisfy himself. And after that, after the satisfaction of the Lord, means whatever the remnants has been left, so that particular remnant, if we have, then that will actually purify our consciousness and the dust of the material accumulation. So that also actually purifies. So first of all, we should understand what is a prasadam or naivedyam. So actually prasadam is a Sanskrit word in which pra plus sa. So sad in Sanskrit is sometimes which is full of something which is full of purity. Means anything at its highest purity. Means if we are offering something, our preparation to the Lord, so that particular preparation becomes the purified. And because Lord is touching to that particular food, whatever we are preparing, and we are actually means offering to the Lord, so that food is not the material food. That food actually becomes the spiritual food because Lord is touching that. And that actually becomes the naivedya. So naivedya means an offering to the Lord. So we have actually gone through like a lot many lectures on this. So this should be our regular practice, that we have to chant 16 rounds, and whatever we are going to have, before having, we have to offer it to Lord. Then means whatever we are doing, so that all the doings will become the Krishna conscious activity. And actually tomorrow actually Lord is descending from his own abode Golok to this material world. And actually he likes it too much that he likes the most, we can say, the makhan. And he actually famous for the makhan, stealing the butter in the Vrindavana. So, and the people of the Vrindavan is not a simple people. They are actually devotee. They are the pure devotee of the Lord. So Lord, so at the time when Lord descended to this world, so this was the daily activity of stealing butter and distributing this butter to the monkeys and his friends. And this was amazing. Like if the whole life, if we remember the pastimes of the Lord of stealing butter and how the gopis were coming to the Yashoda mother, that your son is very, very naughty and he is stealing our butter. And actually Lord was so much enjoying that. And suppose a single day, if Lord does not go to any of the gopis' house to steal butter, then that gopis were thinking that did I do something wrong, that Krishna did not come to my house and to steal butter? So he was so much sad and he could not tolerate that that separation. And he immediately come to the Yashoda Mai that Yashoda Mata, today I did not see your son. So can you please show him? So means without seeing Krishna, no one spent their life in Vrindavan, because Krishna is so much attached to everyone but because the life of the people in the Vrindavan is only Krishna and no others, nothing. So in this way, Krishna has done many pastimes. And I have collected some of the shlokas. Krishna has explained in the Bhagavad Gita, and he's saying that Mamaya Vanso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Manasasthani Indriyani Prakriti Sthani Karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental part. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which includes the mind. All living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore, when they revive their original Krishna consciousness, they possess all the good qualities of Krishna in a small quantity. When one engages himself in the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam, one's heart becomes purified and he immediately understands his relationship with Krishna. He then revives his original quality of Krishna consciousness. So, and also I have also collected this one, avyakto ayam achinto ayam avikaryo ayam uchyate tasmad evam vidit vainam nanu shochitum arhasi. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So in this way, actually, Prabhupada has explained that everything, whatever we see within our experience, we cannot experience anything if it is not in Krishna. So that is Krishna. He was stealing, which we consider not very good business. That stealing is also in Krishna. He is famous as Makhanchur, the stealer of the butter. And Prabhupada has explained so many ways that how all the activities of Krishna is not only the activity, but that is the pastimes. That is the that we have to fit in our thinking. We like this should be in our daily activity, that we have to chintan about the pastimes of the Lord, how Lord has come to this material world and how he has done that so many pastimes. So entire life, if we remember, so that is our business. We have to chant Hare Krishna, we have to eat Krishna Prasadam, and we have to think about Krishna. We have to do everything about Krishna, for Krishna only, because our life is only to please Krishna and nothing, no other business we have. If we are doing other than this business, that business is karma, and we will be bound. We have to come again to this material world and suffering. Again, we have to go through all the processes. Janma, mritu, jara, vyadhi, dukha, doshanu, darshanam. So many ways, like yen ten prakarena manah Krishna niveshayat. This is the process. Somehow or other, you engage your mind in Krishna. Anyway, we have to engage our mind in Krishna. So there are so many things on this, and actually in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, there are 26 qualities of the devotees has been explained, and there are a lot many things, because Krishna is unlimited and his pastimes are unlimited. If we have millions of mouth, and if we have millions of tongue also, we cannot explain the glories of Krishna, how he is, how great he is. So at this point, I just so actually tomorrow's activities that we have to offer the butter and mishri to the Lord, and actually means whatever you can prepare the dishes with the help of the butter, so that also you can just prepare and offer to the Lord. And Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Now, please take up, Prabhu.
Thank you, Jagannath Tirtha Prabhu, for that wonderful explanations and going all over. But I know you're a good cook, and you wanted to explain the importance of satisfying Krishna. So the one line from the class, if you would have attended today, is Yasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam. So if we satisfy the Lord, the whole world is satisfied. And the best way to satisfy the Lord is giving him something which he likes the most. What does he like the most? He likes butter. So the activity for tomorrow is to do something made up of butter. That way the Lord is pleased by that. Not just the Lord, we also will be pleased after taking that remnant. So the activity is make a dish which is made up of butter and offer it to the Lord and share a pick. Thank you all for being part of this wonderful journey to Janmashtami. I hope being part of this journey, somewhere or other, your eagerness to welcome the Lord in your heart would have increased. And that eagerness and that activities that we have been doing might have helped in some way or other in purifying the heart. So before I close, I would like to wish each and every one of you for joining this journey to Janmashtami, and a happy Janmashtami to all of you tomorrow. Those of you who are here and are able to come, please do come and be part of the wonderful celebration that we are planning. And those of you who are not able to come, don't feel disappointed. You can join us virtually. Anybody has any questions before we close? comments for tomorrow's activity or anything in general?
No problem.
Subham has been very regular with this activities. Very nice, Subham. So yeah, this final activity for tomorrow is preparing a dish out of butter, something from butter. Do that and share a pic. And once again, thank you for joining and wishing you all a happy Janmashtami. So if there are no questions, we'll stop here. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. onwards, we will be live on Facebook. Do join us. Actually, if I just turn this video and show you the decorations there, I don't know, maybe the camera cannot capture it all, but we'll just take a sneak peek. Whatever, good. So, and then there is a lot more. We have some activities like Prabhupada Expo and all, which we are planning. So if you are here, we hope to see you tomorrow. If not, then virtually we will meet. Before we close for today, can I request all of you to come in front of your camera and raise your hands once, and we will chant once Hare Krishna Mahamantra and stop for today. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Janmashtami Maha Mahotsav ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hare Hare Bol.
Thank you all for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.